Hello, my name is Heather Crimson, and welcome to this episode. This is a special episode that I will be doing by myself. My co host, Vanessa Baldwin, is on vacation. And so, if you're listening in on our podcast, The Quantum Connection, welcome. I will be talking about all things mental health and circadian rhythm. And if you're listening on my YouTube channel, Enlightened Mood, welcome. And this video will help give you an overview of how mental health is affected by circadian rhythm and mitochondrial function, and also why you should care about that. So, I have been working in the field of mental health for over 20 years, and I have been through many, many iterations of how I saw what our mental health is affected by and how it can be helped. And so that's all, those are all the things that I learned in graduate school and then in my own journey after I got licensed, which is really when the education starts, actually, when I started to think about what do I want to specialize in and how am I going to help people and how does all this work, right? It's a lot to carry. And so on top of that, my own mental health journey based on what my nervous system, as I say, has been through in my life, and where am I at now, and where do I want to be, and how can I best support myself in helping my clients to feel more joy and ease and comfort in their minds and in their bodies. So, first, let me just back up and say that where I'm at now is I'm in a totally brand new place. I am coming from a more holistic perspective. So even though I say mental health, that's just how we're used to thinking about it. I really like to think of us as just a whole being, right? What is it that our being needs, our physical being and our emotional being and then our spiritual selves, right? It's I don't like that we have to separate it out, but it's more manageable, and we're used to thinking of it in sort of like there's the mental aspect and then the mental emotional and then the physical aspects of our experience. But when it comes to health, I like to think about what is the most fundamental aspect of the nature of our being that will support our whole system to have an optimal experience of being alive in our journey of our lives that is very nourishing and healing and life supporting. What is it that gives us more energy? What is it that makes us feel happy versus what is it that takes away from us? So that's kind of the broad scope that I'm looking at. And the one thing that I've come to find that is the most comprehensive in that regard is circadian rhythm, which is connected to our mitochondrial function. Now, that sounds awfully scientific, I understand, and biological and all the things, but it is actually a way of thinking about the intersection between the greater world, including sort of the cosmic aspect of existence, and our physical manifestation. I like to think big picture sometimes to make sense of everything that's exists, and then I like to get to the granular level, and I like to think of how does all that intersect, right? How does the world at large affect our being, and how does that then all play into our perception of it and how we interpret our experience in our lives? So my mission is to integrate the information that I'm learning in the scientific realm into everyday language that will help us to understand how we can basically support our what we call biological experience of being in a body so that we can have a more enriched and joyful and calm mental emotional experience. So that's how I kind of look at how they all connect together. Because if we're not feeling good in our bodies, right, and our digestion's not working, we're not sleeping, we're going to not feel good emotionally and mentally, right? It's all connected. So my mission now is to take what I've learned based on what we call quantum biology, which is how matter at the most minute level that's measurable affects us. And that's all basically energy. Now, I'm just going to give you a little, not a caveat, but a disclaimer, I guess, is that don't worry about if anything sounds scientific. Like, I'm the last person I ever thought who would be talking about this kind of stuff, because in my formative years in school, I was so not good at science and math and all those things in chemistry, and I tried so hard, but something about my development, just nothing clicked. And not that I'm sitting here, studying chemistry equations now, but I like to just at least understand the concept. And so I will just share the little bit I've learned about the scientific aspect of circadian rhythm that really underpins our entire health, our experience of health or disease. So my mission is to bring what I've learned from this realm of quantum biology into the mainstream, because it's not everyday information that you're going to hear on TV or on the news or in any kind of typical magazine. And you're definitely not going to hear about it in your therapy sessions with your therapist, because again, it's not available. And so even though it is kind of more out there at this point, it is what has made all the difference in my health. And then the clients who have been receptive and who have come to me to work with me specifically for that support in helping their energy in their body so that they can have better health, which includes mental health. It has made all the difference for them too. So the whole purpose, my whole mission, is to bring this information out into the world so that we can start to help people understand how they can heal, that it doesn't have to be like I have to try so many different diets and it has to be all meat or all vegetables or whatever, right? It doesn't have to just be that I have to exercise more. There are really clear lifestyle, how shall I say, factors that impact our health, that there's tons and tons of research. It's just that the research stays, I guess, in the research channels, and it doesn't make its way out in a usable manner into the general population. So that is what my whole mission is for Enlightened Mood, and that's what our focus is in the Quantum Connection podcast, is to take this information and bring it out to you so that you can understand what it is that you need to do based on how your body works and what it needs in order to function optimally and to prevent disease and aging and so forth. I mean, not that you're not going to age, but premature aging or advanced or accelerated aging. So it all starts with the rhythmicity or the rhythm that our bodies have. And for whatever reason, whether you want to think of it evolutionarily or any other way, divinely, our bodies are rhythmical beings or entities or organisms, and our body's functionality is tied to the environmental rhythms. So we're talking about the day and night cycles, the seasonal cycles, and so forth. And we're calling that circadian rhythm. The circadian really directly is describing the 24-hour, more or less 24 hours day and night cycle. Well, it turns out that 24-hour day, light and dark cycle pretty much has everything to do with our health. And for most of us, and for me included, this has been new information, right? It's like, what? I've been thinking mostly it's only about diet. Of course, diet matters. Diet is incredibly important. And I've spent most of my life like reading about diet and learning about whole foods and traditional cultures, what they ate, how they prepared their food, what, macronutrient ratios. I mean, there's just so much about diet, and that absolutely matters, but it's not the foundation. Like I am now thinking of health as, what is the foundation? Like this foundation of circadian rhythm has to be in place first. Then you build up from there. You want to stack on top of that. Then you can bring in diet and exercise, movement. I don't know. I like to call it movement versus just, I'm exercising, right? We're going to move and use our body. We're going to inhabit our body fully. Then you build up from there. What is it? If you need more support, in other words, then you build up from there. Like, okay, now we can try some natural interventions like homeopathy and so forth. So we want to get that foundation right. And that's where my focus is. for most people when they're starting out, if they have no idea about the reality of our circadian nature as human mammals, right? So I like to think of it as we need to have our clocks all working properly, because there's literally genes in every cell of your body that are called clock genes. And those clock genes are getting messages from another part of your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It's a group of cells that are in the hypothalamus that are called the master clock. Collectively, they're called the master clock. So those cells, that they receive messages from another group of cells from the back of your eyes called the melanopsin receptors, a certain type of receptor cells. And those are actually gathering the light code from whatever is happening outside and sending that message of light or dark, or what kind of light, right? There's very much many nuances of light throughout the day, to that part of our brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which then synchronizes all the clocks in your body. And so the body is basically becoming synchronized to the rhythms of nature that way. And your body likes to, basically, it prefers to do certain things in the daytime when it's light out, and then it has other tasks, many, many tasks that it needs to perform and complete during the nighttime, when it's optimized to do those tasks during the nighttime. So we're optimized to do certain things in the daytime, and we're optimized to do certain things at the nighttime. Now, what happens if we don't get that exposure in our eyes? And actually, the research shows now that all of your skin has receptor cells for light as well. So our whole body is basically designed to capture light. And if there's no light, that also is a message that our body's taking in. So our whole body takes in these messages and knows what to do when. And when we don't get the right light information or darkness at the time that our body's expecting it to be dark, we become mismatched to nature. Some call it asynchronous. We're not synchronizing, we're the opposite, we're asynchronous. And some call it circadian misalignment. But whatever you call it, it basically is saying that what's going on is we're not working well, right? We're not getting the messages that we need to get, because your eyes are actually using the light code. So they come in as a more of an energy wave, and they become matter inside of you, which I know there's that science stuff, right? It's like, what? But your body is actually capturing the photons of light and using them as they turn from energy wave into the particles that are using there's aromatic amino acids in these pathways, say from your eyes to your hypothalamus and then to the rest of your body, and it transmutes using that energy of the light. It makes a new substance. So for example, when you take the light code in, one of those pathways is that your body makes tryptophan, and then from tryptophan it makes serotonin, and then from serotonin it makes melatonin. So it's this beautiful orchestrated sequence of events that happens just from that light photon. It's amazing, right? It's just, that's the quantum aspect of it. When I think of quantum, I think of, well, what exactly does that mean, right? So it's something that's basically imperceptible. Like we can see light, but you're not actually registering that there's a photon of light coming into your eyeball. But that's something that we can't see is actually having this massive impact on us. That is the quantum impact. That's the definition of quantum, right? And so we absolutely have to get that light code in our eyes every day if we want to be able to have optimal health. Because here's the tie to your mental health. So, okay, I told you about the physical aspect, right? Your body needs those biochemical substances in order to do everything it needs to do. And when it doesn't have enough of the code and you aren't getting the light at the right time, things start to fall apart. In other words, the communication systems in your body that are instantaneous, and all this is happening at light speed, literally, and each cell is performing 100,000 tasks every second, which is amazing, right? All of that starts to kind of get a little wonky, and the communication isn't happening effectively, and there's basically chaos that starts to happen. And that is what inflammation is. And this is the interesting thing. Like, I just looked at a study that said it went through all the different mental illnesses. So say bipolar is one, for example, and obviously anxiety and depression, but all of them, as well as like Alzheimer's and MS, and there's one I was trying to think of, I couldn't think of it, but those kinds of brain issues. And so that circadian rhythm mismatch or misalignment underpins all mental health issues, all of them, because of this breakdown in your body's communication, which might sound like crazy, right? But it's actually true. When you are inflamed, it's going to show up in various ways. So when we have inflammation, things swell, right? And so you're going to have inflammation in the brain. Communication's not working in the brain. Your brain doesn't have what it needs to create new neurons. The transmission of biochemical substances isn't happening effectively. But that's not the problem. That's the consequence of this circadian mismatch, where your body is starting to then not be able to work properly, right? That's the downstream result. So we don't want to intervene there. You can, that's fine. If you want to take, say, psychotropics and SSRIs, totally fine. If you want a natural approach and you want to be able to support your body in a way that enhances its functioning, because it wants to be able to heal, right? Those are symptoms, right? Depression, anxiety is a symptom, or any other illness is just a symptom. You want to find what the root cause is. That's always what I've wanted to do, is like, well, what's causing that? And then what's causing that? And how can I get to just the very nitty gritty of what is this about? And that's where the research is right now, is that it's about circadian rhythm problems. So you want to intervene at that level, which is natural. It's a natural approach, because we're just basically bringing things back into balance with what our body is needing and wanting. And we are then providing the say raw materials, if you will, of the light codes and the darkness of what it needs to be able to then get back into rhythm. It's quite phenomenal, right? So when we don't have enough of the light exposure at the right times of the day, and then we get the wrong light inputs in the evenings, say blue light, for example, because there's a huge difference between blue light that is in the sky, right? And then blue light that's coming from an artificial source. Massive. And in fact, the research is just, I mean, there's so much research. I can't even tell you, I can't keep up with it all. And the health impacts, though, of the light inputs, whether it's artificial or not, are they're just profound. It's so profound. And it makes all the difference, these small adjustments that you can make throughout the day of managing your light environment, right? We want to make sure that you're getting the right natural light input, and you're not subjecting yourself to artificial light at the nighttime when you're not supposed to be naturally in that kind of light, which is hugely disruptive. People think, oh no, I can't live a normal life. Yes, you can. You don't have to like throw out all the TVs and the computers at night, but you do need to know how to protect yourself and make these adjustments so that you're going to not compromise your health. Because here's the thing, artificial light at night is not only tied to depression and anxiety, that there's the sleep problems, right? It's also tied to cancer and many other medical issues, or so-called, symptoms. So this is a really big deal. And again, I know it might sound like it's hard to believe, but it has everything to do with our health. And it's a very doable not always convenient, but it's not hard. It's just you have to choose, right? You have to choose. Do I want to do some simple shifts in my life so that I can nourish rather my body and what it needs? Or do I want to, right? Like kind of plug my ears or bury your head in the sand, right? Because this will come down to beliefs that you have about health. One of them is the sun. And in our podcast, Vanessa and I in the Quantum Connection have talked about the myths about the sun. Unfortunately, right, you're going to hear from all the experts and the medical organizations and all of your doctors that the sun is bad. And that's really not true. And who am I to say that? Well, I have my own personal experience, the N equals one rather, of doing that experiment on myself of how my health was before using sunlight as medicine and then now. And they're vastly different. So I healed myself from chronic fatigue. Am I at 100%? No, but I was at like 40 or 30%. If you can think of, like, I have all the energy that I need to get through the day. I was pretty low and I was depressed and I was anxious and everything was really hard. And I was not really living a life that I wanted that way, right? To now, say it's been what, 6 years almost that I've been living a life based on the circadian rhythm optimization. I have like 95%. 100 would be that I could, run 3 miles, but, I'm getting older at 54 and overcoming for so many years, right? This super low energy and feeling just awful, right? No resilience, like, and no, which means also no emotional resilience, because you need energy to feel good, right? You need energy to feel alive. So I just felt so crummy, but now I used to sleep awfully, like I'd be up 2 to 3 hours a night and just feel like exhausted when I wake up. I wake up feeling pretty energized. It doesn't take long at all for me to feel cognitively present. Like I don't need any coffee or anything like that. I want to go outside. I want to walk. I have the energy to do these kinds of things, which before would feel overwhelming because your brain needs a lot of energy to function effectively. Your heart needs a lot of energy. So I just want to make one comment about that I mentioned early on about mitochondrial function. So there are millions and millions and probably trillions of these subcellular, teeny tiny microscopic organisms in every cell. Has, several thousand, depending on what part of your body the cells are in, of these organisms called mitochondria, which are actually bacteria. They predate humans, right? And so they are basically little factories that create things that we need to be alive, like oxygen and like this, we call it structured water. It's a special liquid crystal kind of water. And they create melatonin. And so, or I think that rather they're breaking down oxygen into these components. So into melatonin, and then they create energy to be able to do the functions that the body needs. But there's other ways that our body makes energy. That's just one piece of it. But without the proper circadian signaling, because these mitochondria are light dependent, they respond to light and dark, and they are circadian also. And if our circadian rhythm is not good, these mitochondria, for one, aren't getting the raw materials they need. They're not getting the right signals that they need. What happens is that little factory inside with the assembly line starts to become too far apart, and the electrons that are needing to jump from station to station, which is our source of energy, start to fall off. And then that means we're not effectively operating. We're just not effectively operating. And that's what causes inflammation. And that's what causes a communication breakdown. Basically, it's chaos in our body. So the one thing that makes us work, which is our mitochondria, are circadian and dependent on having a healthy circadian rhythm. If the mitochondria in your brain are starting to not work well, you're going to have more mental health problems. If they're not working on the heart, you're going to have heart issues, or wherever in your body you're starting to have symptoms. So the root, again, is to focus on balancing and optimizing your circadian rhythm. So I hope this has been helpful. This, again, is my mission. It's my passion. It's what I am living, breathing, eating. And I am going to work on continuing to learn myself, because it is a lot to go from being not a very good science person to now I want to know all the things science as best I can understand it, so that I can explain it to people in a way that's digestible. And I want to help people who are wanting to overcome anxiety and depression through a natural means, through lifestyle changes, so they can feel empowered. If that's you, I want you to feel empowered. I don't want you to feel like you have to be at someone else's, at the mercy of someone else. Like, you have to take a pill, or if you don't go to therapy every week. Hey, I'm all for therapy. I'm in my therapy office right now. But that you can be okay, that you have that agency, that you can choose to do things that are going to really help you to feel better. And then you can go to therapy to work on other things like social issues and relationship issues. And those will even be so much easier, because you're going to be way more emotionally resilient when your body has ample energy, because all the systems are synchronized and working top notch, right? So that you can move through things in your life that are challenging and not feel overwhelmed. Because that's what I believe a lot of the overwhelm is coming from. When we hear a lot of people talking about overwhelm, is we're trying to do too much all the time. For one, I don't think that's healthy, right? Like, we're only worth how much we produce, or how much stuff we get done. That's just not healthy. But rather than trying to like do, we want to feel like we're actually having an experience in life, right? We're having an experience of feeling joy and creating, and we get to choose. And it's not like we're always struggling and stressed out and forcing ourselves to just get through it. Like, what kind of life is that, right? So that we can actually create a life that feels nourishing. So when you have more energy, your emotions are easier, right? You don't feel as overwhelmed as easily. You're not as stressed out. You have that, zest for life, and you want to engage in your life. That's what it's all about. Otherwise, what are we here for, right? Like, why just suffer? Because a lot of the clients I've had over the last 20 years, it's like just the grinding, and they're just trying to get to the next thing. And then, well, when I retire, it's like, really? Like, we're here for more than that. And I want you to be here for more than that. So you can be uplifted, and you can have energy, and you can feel like, what do I want to create today? What am I choosing today? How am I going to show up in the world today? And that all comes from feeling good in your body. And then that helps you to have a more optimal, like a more positive mindset. And then it all kind of flows from there. So let me know if you have any questions. I hope this was helpful. And I look forward to seeing you again in another video and another podcast episode. And thanks for joining it. You can find me at enlightenedmood.com.